Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TFI CAD Tips, where I'm doing a Q&A. Indeed, yes, I'm doing Q&A. I got a lot of questions and comments coming through the YouTube channel in increasing frequency at the moment, and I just can't answer them all directly. I'm afraid I just can't. I just can't. So what I thought I'd do instead is I would do a collation of some of the the most recent questions that have come through, and then answer them in a video. And what I'll say just before we get started, this is going to be a long video, so buckle up and get comfortable, because the guy who likes to waffle is doing a Q&A session. And I am super, super impressed and pleased with just my audience in general. I went through every comment that had been posted on the channel in the last 6 weeks. There wasn't a single bit of filth that you would normally find on another YouTuber's video. Not a single piece of internet garbage had made its way through. Hugely impressed with that. So I'm hoping it stays that way. It probably won't, but I was very impressed with that. So thank you guys very much for that. And secondly, if you do have any I've said this before, but if you do have any super important questions that are really important to you in your workflow that are urgent, please don't send me a message. Please don't put them on the comments of a YouTube video. Go to the Autodesk forums. If there's anything really important to you and you need an answer pretty quickly, the YouTube messaging system is just not the place for that. I can't set that precedent. If you've got questions which are suitable for a video like this, which are pretty quick and easy to answer, what kind of graphics card should I buy? I've got a very quick fire answer, that's yes or no. Those kind of things, no problem. But if you question something along the lines of, hey mate, I've got the sheet metal part and I'm using a style which has got 1.2 mil aluminium thickness with a weird K factor, but also my bend ratio is just slightly a little bit unusual. And when I do a punch feature through this part, the parameter is going a bit skewed. Right, I can't answer those questions. Anything that needs me to open up Inventor, ask for files, and then strike up a dialect, I can't do that. I just can't. I don't think that's unreasonable. So we'll get started with Brad Woolen. Brad Woolen, right? I'm going to butcher names as we go through this because I'm hopeless with names. It's a long question, so I'll paraphrase. So I'm currently in the process of looking for components to build a PC that's fully CAD capable at reasonable price point. So I need it for CAD CAM capable systems, running various 3D and 2D modeling software in an efficient and hassle-free way. I'm a student. I'm currently running everything on a Lenovo G5070 laptop with an i5 onboard GPU, 4GB of RAM, 1TB mechanical hard disk, and it's struggling. Yes, it will do. And I need a new system. I'm fairly confident with building PCs. I don't need a build for me. I just need to know what to get. I've seen the Quadro cards that are available, but as I'm solely doing CAD, I'm not solely doing CAD all day, every day. I would prefer the flexibility of a non-standard GPU. Do you have any advice? Also, any advice on specs to look out for with regards to CPU, RAM, and motherboard? So, Brad wants a system for the budget's approximately around about $1,000, which is a good budget for a student. But he's looking for a system which he can work with, you can work on, but also game at the same time. And I'm glad I'm getting questions like this because it kind of validates the work that I've been doing with the Alienware gaming laptop running Quadro cards through an amplifier. I thought I was crazy, but other people are interested in that sort of stuff. So it's good that I'm getting those questions because it does validate my craziness. So what I would say, on a budget of $1,000, you're going to struggle to get something that's high end. And the CPU that you go for dictates the platform that you run on. So for example, the PC that I've got behind there, that's on the i7-4790K, which is a generation old CPU. Therefore, the motherboard is a generation old. The RAM is a generation old. I can't run DDR4. I can't have motherboards with USB Type-C sockets on them with the modern generations of PCI Express. When that comes out, I'm stuck on that platform. So the CPU that you go for will dictate everything else that you go for. So the tests that we've done so far show the i7-6700K is the best CPU on the market today for running Inventor. Even over and above the likes of the Extreme Edition processors, because they run at a lower clock speed, more cores, but they run at a lower clock speed. So the 6700K is the best choice to go for, but it is an expensive CPU. So if that is a stretch too far, possibly look at an i5-6600K. You can go for the non-K CPU, but the price point difference is minimal. So go for the 6600 or the 6700K and then maybe consider overclocking it to get a higher clock speed out of it. The motherboard and RAM doesn't really matter. Just go for something low end. If you're not wanting a system that lights up and you're going to run at trade shows, that kind of thing, doesn't really matter. If your motherboard looks good, probably not. So go for something, as long as it's compatible with the CPU, then you should be fine. DDR4, go for a solid state drive. And the graphics card, that's another biggie, because that's one of the most expensive components in a system. And your budget's going to restrict what graphics card you can go for. And all I can say, just to keep these questions as short as possible, I've got 27 to get through, so I can't spend too much time on any one question. But if you want a graphics card that's good for gaming, but is also going to be not a bottleneck with Inventor or other 3D CAD, go for a 9 series card because they've come down in price since the 10 series came out. All my TFI CAD tips videos to date have been running a 970, GTX 970. They've come down in price massively. They're okay for games, not brilliant, but great for games. And they're overkill for Inventor still, so a 970 is good. I've got a 1070 in there now, but you're looking at 500 quid for a 1070, so that's probably outside of the budget. But now that they've come down in price, possibly look at the 980s or the 980 Ti's. So that's what I'll say on that. Right. And just one more point on that. If you are thinking about running something like SolidWorks, I can't speak for SolidWorks directly because I don't use SolidWorks and never have, but they do require that you use a Quadro card. I could slag that off to no end and say it's not necessary, but that's the way they've got it. That's the way it is. As far as I know, if you're running a gaming card with SolidWorks, it will still work. It's just not supported, and you can't use like RealView, which is the advanced visualization. I mean, when SolidWorks say, or when Autodesk say something's not supported, that doesn't mean when you call them up they're going to just go, yeah, fuck off. It's not going to happen. It just means that it gives them an opportunity to say, you've got a problem, it could be this. It's not supported, therefore you need to fix it. All right, question 2 is coming from Isaac Trussell. Right. Thank you very much for the nice words. I'll try and skip that bit to keep it quick. I know you have another channel. I couldn't find it. I was going to ask, would you recommend a micro ATX or a mini ITX board that will work for CAD software, or if the motherboard really has anything to do with it? No, the motherboard doesn't really have anything to do with it. It doesn't matter whether you go for a full-size ATX board, which is the likes of that PC in the background, or whether you go for a micro ATX or a mini ITX. For anyone that doesn't know, motherboards come in different sizes. So you've got full-size ATX and micro motherboards, mini motherboards. The size of the motherboard doesn't matter. In terms of processing power, if you put a 6700K in a full-size ATX board, it will run the same as it would do in a mini ITX board. The downside of using micro ATX or micro ATX or mini ITX, we'll call them small boards. The downside of running the small boards is that you've got less board real estate for ports and sockets. So for a full size ATX, you can have maybe 8 RAM slots, whereas on a small board you might only have 2. You've got fewer fan headers on the board. You've got fewer sockets on the board for front panel ports and rear I/O ports, fewer ports. There's just downsides there, compromises. And people run with smaller boards so they can have smaller cases, so this PC in general is smaller if they're restricted for space. So no, it doesn't make any difference at all. There's possibly cooling to consider, but Inventor, and mostly what you're doing with Inventor, it doesn't really generate a lot of heat. It doesn't max out the CPU for extended periods of time like gaming would. So you don't really need to consider heat for CAD, but if you're going to use it for gaming as well, then cooling could be something that you need to think about on a small case, fewer fans, less airflow, that kind of thing. Right, question 3 comes from Saul Mazabo. Alright, I've just watched your Alienware video. I was wondering if you had any issues with Quadro cards. Was there anything needed besides downloading the drivers? I'm looking to get a Quadro to run SolidWorks, but wanted the Alienware for light gaming. That sucks to be you if you're using SolidWorks and you need a Quadro. But I'm glad I'm getting questions like this again because it validates the Alienware video that I did. No issues whatsoever with running the Quadro through the Alienware amplifier. The whole point of doing that was to see if I could have a gaming laptop, but then when I needed to do work and be proper and supported, could I run a Quadro through the graphics amplifier? Yes, I could. No, there's no problems whatsoever. The only downside of doing that setup is the drivers. That's it. So when you're running on the laptop alone, you've got to have the GeForce drivers installed, and then when you plug in the amplifier with the Quadro, you need to install the Quadro drivers and then take them off and then put them back on. It's a pain in the arse, but it is what it is. Not a problem. It works fine. I can't validate performance of the Quadro either on the Alienware amplifier. I got someone snarky did come along and be like, oh, you rubbish benchmarks. You can't. There's no comparison. And I'm like, yeah, well, you can't. You can't compare the graphics amplifier running a Quadro against a desktop running a Quadro because especially for 3D CAD, most of its performance is coming from the CPU. And on the laptop, that CPU is in an extremely small form factor, which thermal throttles. The performance is limited by the laptop's heat, which is then bottlenecking the CPU, which is lowering the performance, which then looks like the Quadro's performing worse. But that's not the case. Whereas if you stick the Quadro in a desktop card, you don't get heat issues. You don't get those bottlenecks that you would do with a laptop. So it's difficult to benchmark it. But as far as I could tell, there was very, very little. I'll not say no performance hit from running it through the graphics amplifier, but as far as I could tell, it wasn't a problem. Question 4 has come through from Daniel de Danielle Wind T. Hello, I really enjoy the way you explain stuff. Do you have a website as well? No, mate, I don't have a website. The reason for that is I don't think I've got anything of value to put on a website. I thought about it. I've got a domain which I could have a website hosted upon, but I've got nothing of value to put on there. Everything that I do goes on YouTube or the other sites that I work on. I could possibly correlate it all onto one website, but then I've got that much to do at the moment that I don't really need that extra level of micromanagement. So as far as I can tell at the moment, no website, no immediate plans for one, but that might change in the future. Right, question 5 has come through from Jacob Coate. I've just started a job where I've given the task to set up Vault, and your videos have been helpful. Although I was wondering, is there an easy way to move files around in the Vault without screwing up anything? Do you have any advice? Yes, mate, I do, because I haven't really made it common knowledge, but I'm more of an expert on Vault than I am with Inventor. My day job is Vault. That's what I do day in and day out, is Autodesk Vault. I don't know who I pissed off in an earlier life to have ended up with that job, but that's kind of where I am. So to answer your question direct, if you want to move stuff around in Vault without screwing up anything, you just move stuff around in Vault. It should be as simple as that, provided that the files have been checked in correctly, i.e. through a CAD client and not dragged and dropped, so the relationships are retained. If you drag and drop files into Vault through Windows Explorer, the relationships get smashed when they enter Vault. Vault's built upon Microsoft SQL technology, so all the links between files are embedded into the database. So assembly part, you put that into Vault, that relationship is embedded into an SQL database table. So when you move the part in Vault, just by dragging and dropping it into another folder, Vault, with its SQL sort of back end, fixes the relationship as files are moved around. So it shouldn't be a problem. If you are having problems moving stuff around, then you've probably got a bigger Vault problem. Right, question 6 come through from Hunt Raya. It's an important question, right? If you do have an important question, please don't send me a YouTube message. If it's that important, please put it on the Autodesk forums. You'll have got an answer within the 2 months since you posted this one. Important question on Inventor and exporting. Is it possible to export and then open assemblies without Inventor looking for parts, losing constraints, and able to open parts and change them? I have an assembly with 20 parts and I need all those exported into different file formats so it can be opened in lower versions of Inventor and at the same time have a lower file size on disk. The only way you can do that is if you want to open up assemblies in earlier versions of Inventor, you need to export to a step file and then open up that step file in the earlier version of Inventor. To lower the size on disk, the only thing you can do, it is what it is. You're packing an assembly into an IPT, so you're packing 20 files worth of data into a single file. That file is going to be quite big. If you can do without some of the data and strip it out, shrink wrap the assembly first into an IPT, reduce some of the file data, some of the parts, some of the holes, do whatever you can using the shrink wrap options, and then export that shrink wrapped file to a step file. That's the only thing you can do, really. Question 7 comes from Robert Myers. Right, I have a question for you in regards to an assembly file that I've created. I have all the parts constrained together properly and it is all working perfectly, but I cannot get the parts to go back to their original orientation. Say I have a pivot arm that I constrained to a joint. I rotated it to test it out to make sure that it pivots correctly. It works, but I cannot get it to go back perfectly being straight. Is there any way to do this? Yes, mate. Press undo. Undo is your threat. No, not really. Right, so when you create your constraint, so say for example you've got a pivot arm like this, right? So it's up here and it can go down here, right? That's the assembly. Create an angular constraint between the arm and another face and make that 0 degrees, right? So it'll pivot around and then it'll go clunk and then you can't drag it around. It's constrained to 0 degrees. Use the angular constraint, which is the second one along. I think it's called an undirected angular constraint. Once you do that, in the constraint dialog box at the bottom, you'll have a limits set of options. Tick the box that says use angle as resting something. Tick that box and then put in 45 degrees or 90 degrees or whatever it is in the maximum limit and then 0 degrees in the minimum limit. What you'll then be able to do is drag the arm between 0 and 90 degrees. And then when you let go of it, it'll snap back to 0 because that's what's been set as the resting angle. So you do that and that should do it. Right, Swagiolo. I am not sure what I can offer Swagiolo for advice. How do you offer someone called Swagiolo some advice? He knows everything. I'm wondering what you need or what you use to light up your rainbow colour PC. I have a $4,500 bill, but you would do, wouldn't you, if you call Swagiolo? But I currently only use LEDs that look nowhere near as cool as that. So the LEDs that I've got in that system there, it's just a standard strip of LEDs, a flexi strip of LEDs on a Molex connector that goes into the power supply. Nothing special about it. The only thing I've done, I guess, maybe differently to someone else, is if you look at the window on the side panel, it's a plastic clear window, I've ran the strips around the lip on the inside of the panel, so they're facing into the PC, but they're stuck onto the side panel, going around the glass window, and then that's it. That's all there is to it. And then I think they're called Deep Cool LEDs. I bought them off eBay in the UK. They're just generic strips. There's nothing special about them. It looks cool as balls, but there's nothing special about it. Right, question 9 comes in from Paulo Montero. Right, Paulo Montero. Hello, and thanks for the great job. Yeah, thanks, hey mates, no fucking problem. I'm not an Inventor user, but I love watching them. What is wrong with you? Anyway, I would like to ask you if you've already experienced Inventor's mold tooling. I'm a mold tooling designer in Portugal, and I use another software, but I was running about Inventor because it's user-friendly and wondering why it's not used often for molds. Well, it is. Inventor does have a mold module, but I've not ever really worked in a company that's done plastic parts or any kind of mold. I had a need to create mold housings and whatnot, so I've never really had any experience with it, hence why I've done no videos on it. It's a bit of a boring module as well, I guess. It's not very exciting to cover, so I've never done anything on it. But that's not to say it doesn't work. I'm just sort of staring at the screen because I can see my monitors flashing in the background. I've never done anything on it, but I think the module, as far as I know, the module works just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It functions just perfect. It's had plenty of time to mature into something that works, so it should be fine. Right, question 10 comes from Game Bros TMT. Do you recommend any chairs other than the DXRacer, like GT Omega or something? I've no experience with any other chairs. This is the first chair. This comes off the back of the DXRacer chair rant video that I've done, which I'm hoping goes a lot further than it has already, because honestly, that company. But it's the first time I've ever bought a branded chair. Every other chair that I've had has been a generic, unbranded office chair from like IKEA or Argos in the UK. But if you go to that video, my DXRacer rant video, and then just read through the comments, there's a few people who've suggested other chair brands. I can't vouch for them. I have no idea what they were like. I don't know. I can't speak for any of the other ones, but there's some other chairs that I did look at the time, but I didn't see them. Noble, Noble chairs, Maxnomic. That's about it really. GT Omega are quite big in the sim racing business, so a lot of... I don't know if this is sort of unreasonable and a bit inappropriate to say, but the majority of the sim racing community are quite old and mature people, because the kit is very expensive, so you do need to be kind of older with a good job to afford that kind of stuff. You're looking at thousands and thousands for all these sim rigs and stuff. If those guys are buying GT Omega chairs, then that you would think that would speak for the quality of them, but I couldn't say for certain myself. Question 11 comes in from Rhino Plays. How do we know you're not getting paid by a ROTC to make this video? So this is the DXRacer chair. Well, for a start, I've never heard of a ROTC or a ROTC. No idea who they are, mate. And if I was getting paid by them to slag off DXRacer, you'd think they would send me one of their chairs, but they haven't. Never heard of them. All right, question 12 comes in from Mr. Mabrowski. What a name, Mabrowski. Right, I watched a lot of your videos so far and was wondering what I would be able to do with my PC now that I have my I have had my FX8350 for a while now and an R9 270X 4GB. For Cinema 4D it's great, but lacks with Inventor that I do for my robotics club. I know single core performance is needed for Inventor and the 8350 is alright, but I was wondering if there's anything I could do to make it better. I have, again, no experience with AMD processors, primarily because they're kind of like they're like the third wheel, really. You don't really buy one unless you can't... I'm going to offend people here, but unless you can't afford a good Intel, you would go for an AMD. Or you're a proper AMD fanboy, perhaps. That's when I wouldn't go for an AMD, because they're just not as good as Intel processors. That is a fact. There's no arguing with that. Right now, they are not as good as Intel. They've got their new architecture coming out soon for AMD, but at the moment, that's not out. So everyone goes for Intel in the professional world. You will not find a workstation that sells like from Dell or HP that ships with an AMD processor. It just doesn't happen. So for the 8350, I did do a quick search on this before I posted the question. It's got a high clock speed, so you would think that it would be performing as well as Intel's, but it doesn't work like that. The instructions per cycle for the two different manufacturer processors, I don't think they're comparable. So 4GB on an AMD processor is not really comparable to 4GB on an Intel processor. So Another thing that I know is that the AMD processors do suffer from heat issues, so you might want to look at maybe getting, if you haven't got one already, a better aftermarket cooler, because it might be throttling down when it hits high temperatures. I don't know. But other than just ditch it and buy an Intel processor, I haven't really got much for that. Right, question 13 comes from Darius Makowski. Is that a bit of dirt on my... Are you worried that straight line is not straight? So, right, so this is posted on the LG monitor video, right? So you can see my LG monitor behind almost. So I've got a widescreen LG monitor, so it's like 34 inches and it's curved. So, and I've had a couple of questions from people saying, is this not bad for CAD work because the lines curve? No, it's not. It's really not. It doesn't curve up. It curves around your face. So as long as you're sat at eye level, the curve is coming around you. Like this. It's not curving up or down. So no, the lines do not appear curved at all. And even if they did, the curve is so large, it wraps around your head, and it's not sharp. It's not a sharp curve. It's not a spontaneous kind of spectacular curve. It's gradual and it's even according to the screen. So it's not an issue at all in the slightest. Right, question 14 comes in from Adam Dude. When's the tube and pipe video going on? Question 15 comes in from F. Janagle the second. You recently did a video with a 4K monitor as a display. I can't seem to find it here. Would like to rewatch. Did you mention which graphics card you used to drive the display? That would have been the GTX 970, whichever video that was, as I've done very few, if any, videos on the 1070. So it would have been the GTX 970 I was running that on. I also seem to remember you mentioning Inventor 2017 now supports 4K displays. Yes, I can get a 42 or a 43 inch 4K TV for around $300 in the US. Just looking to make it happen. Yeah, okay, so for $300, the 4K TV is going to be questionable at best. It's probably unbranded, or the supermarket or electronic chain's own brand of screen. You get what you pay for, don't you? But take a punt with it. It's better to spend $300 and to realise the display is not up to the job than to spend $1,000 and realise the display is not up to the job. So go for it. What I will say, for a 4K display, in Windows works awfully on a 4K display. It really does. It's horrible to use. I can't use 4K. I just can't. I've spent a little bit extra to put 4K in that Alienware laptop, and I can't use it. It's awful. And the graphics card, you need to have a good graphics card to run 4K on Inventor. Running an Inventor at 4K isn't like running games at 4K. For example, I've got a car. You may have seen the car model, the BAC model that I've got. Running that at 4K on a very powerful graphics card is still extremely jerky. Nowhere near 30 frames per second. That's a car model. I can then shut down Inventor, open up Project Cars, which is a proper sim racing game, and then I can jump onto a track, the Nürburgring, jump in a bloody Pagani, and then race with 12 other cars on 4K at 60 frames per second. Go figure. Because the assets aren't the same. It's different rendering engine. So if you think, well, this laptop or this PC runs games at 4K, it should handle Inventor. Not necessarily. Alright, question 16 comes in from Javier Perez. Please, a question. It's fine, mate. It's fine. Just go right ahead. I just want to I'll get a lot of hardware questions coming, which I'm happy about. I'm so happy about that. Thank you so much for the hardware questions. I enjoy the hardware questions. I just want to put an MSI GTX 1080 in my Alienware amplifier, or I want to, and I've seen in the video that it won't be possible to close the lid if I install this graphics card. Is it certain it will still function adequately even if the lid's not closed properly? Yes, mate, will do. If you watch the Alienware amplifier video that I did, I put in the AMD R9 380, I think it was, that I have got up there on the shelf, and the lid and the amplifier doesn't shut. Dell, really. But the card works fine. All the connectors are still in place. There's no sensors on the box to detect that it's not shut properly. If anything, it might even help with cooling because you've got air coming in, whereas with it shut, you've got restricted airflow. I would highly doubt that Dell or Alienware designed that box to have any kind of special static air pressure built up inside it or cooling airflow work done on it. I don't know, but I highly doubt it. But no, it works fine with the lid slightly open. Question 17. Christian Austin, would student version count as a subscription? So this came on the Inventor R2, the 2017 R2 video, where you can get the R2 version with added functionality for Inventor if you're on subscription. And yes, the student version should count as subscription. As long as you've got a login to the Autodesk website to manage your account, it should be on subscription. Question 18. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. I've never had a student version, but as far as I know, it is. Right, question 18 comes in from Vuk Zechev. Hello, man. Great videos. I was wondering, can you give me advice for buying a laptop? I'm an architectural student and I need some laptops or a laptop for my studies. And I'm wondering, can I get something really cool for 2,500 euros to serve me the next few years? Fucking right, you can, man. For 2,500 euros. Look at a student buying a laptop for 2,500 euros. Mate, you can get pretty much anything you want for 2,500 euros short of a workstation. In fact, you could probably even get a Dell Precision mobile workstation for 2,500 euros. If you're an architectural student, I'm assuming you're using something like Revit. As far as I know, Revit works fine on gaming cards. So, again, I'd say possibly look at the Alienware range. The people out there don't like them. There's people out there who do like them. As far as I know, they're extremely well built. You can get a top-of-the-range Alienware unit for 2,000 euros very, very easily. Maybe hold back a few weeks because the 10 series mobile graphics cards are coming very soon to laptops, so maybe hold back and then get an Alienware. That's what I would say. I've got one. I can vouch for it. It's absolutely fine. Right. So question 19 comes in from Arnas Pudukas. I've seen a couple more videos about the same problems, and all of them with the King series. What do you think about this, and does anyone know anything more about this? I'm really scared of getting one of these chairs. So I didn't do any research really before I did the DXRacer rant video. I just didn't want my opinion to be clouded or to accidentally say something that I've watched on someone else's video. So it was all my work, it was all my opinions. But yeah, I have seen other people complaining about those chairs. I don't know. I can't say go for one and risk it because it's a lot of money. Maybe just do as much research as you can. Look at the chairs, look at the people who've done the videos and see whether or not you can trust their opinions, and then make your decision based on that. Question 20 comes in from Kieran Granger. Thank you for the nice name, Kieran, and easily pronounceable. Hello, how can I create a new plane in a 3D sketch? So this is off the how to do 3D sketching video. You can't, mate. It's a 3D sketch. It doesn't work with planes. You can include geometry in 3D sketches, so you can snap 3D sketch points to faces, but you can't create planes in a 3D sketch. It's 3D. It's not working on planes, so you just don't have planes in 3D sketches. Right, question 21 comes in from Products for Industry. Right, thanks for the informational video. I have issues with Inventor, just like you're explaining. I thought I had a good laptop, an HP ZBook with a 4810MQ, 2.8 gigahertz, 16 gig of RAM, 256 gig solid state drive. I've had the program stored on my SSD and the files on the mechanical disk. Inventor program is very slow to open, sometimes quite unresponsive, and I'm using it even though the program is installed in the SSD. What I would say, for HP laptops, I hate HP laptops with a passion. HP preload their laptops with so much bloatware and junk that it has to have a negative impact on the functioning of the system. So whenever I've had an HP system come into the company that I've been working at, the first thing I do before I do anything else is just remove all the HP shit on it. You don't need any of it. Not a single program. There's millions and millions of people out there running laptops and desktops without that HP crap on it, and they work just fine. HP aren't offering you anything that you need. Remove all the HP shit, and then run something like CCleaner, which used to be called Crap Cleaner. Clear away do a registry repair all the registry errors, do a cleanup and analyze, and then clean up all the Windows error logs, all the crap lying around. And then just go from there, do a defrag or optimize on your hard disk, and then see how it goes. It could be that the PC just needs rebuilt. It might be old and congested, it just needs rebuilt. Question 22 comes in. I'm just checking the timer. I've got a minute left before my camera can only record half an hour at a time, so I need to start it again after 30 minutes. Right, question 22 comes in from Vitos Ivanauskas. Right, this isn't a question, but I had to read this because it was fucking hilarious. I was on holiday in Corfu when I read this question. And based on the guy's name, I hope the guy doesn't take offense to this because it was hilarious. But based on his name, I picture him as having like a European accent. or like an Eastern European accent. And this is how I read the question. My God, you have golden patience. By time I would have already smashed the chair with axe and send the pieces to people and also find a cow and shit on it. And then cow to shit in the box and then go buy another chair. Completely lost it. I lost it. That was hilarious. So I just thought I'd add that in because I thought I just buckled. I was lost. So question 23 comes in from Mike Fern, right? Regarding graphics cards, how would an AMD FirePro W4100 stand up to gamers style graphics cards like the R9 380? Not much in cost difference, and the FirePro is Autodesk certified hardware, if that makes a difference. Not really. I don't know the exact specs on the W4100 and the R9 380, but in terms of being certified hardware, all Autodesk do, it's very different to how SolidWorks does things. Autodesk test workstations and graphics cards internally, and they only test Quadro because they're the professional cards. So they test the Quadro cards, make sure everything works fine. The misconception is that Autodesk say, yes, these work the best. They don't. They just say, this Quadro card or this FirePro card work. Everything works. Shadows work, reflections work. There's no crashes that we can tell. It's certified. Doesn't mean it works any better than a gaming card or any faster than a gaming card. It just means Autodesk have tested it. Therefore, they know that if there's a crash or there's a problem with your system running that graphics card, they know that that graphics card does actually work. That's all supported means. So, yeah, it's supported. Certified hardware doesn't really make anything run any better. Right, question 24 comes in from Hans Brummer. Good tutorial. Just one question. Is it possible to get a list of all your published tutorial videos? No, not really. That's really on YouTube. So all my tutorials are on YouTube and nowhere else. I'm putting some on Pluralsight soon. But on YouTube, there's no way to really collate everything and download them all. So I've tried to split everything into playlists. So on the left-hand side of the YouTube browser, you can see playlists, or if you go to somewhere and there'll be a link somewhere within YouTube to look at my playlists, and then you can view all the tutorials there. But there's no way to really collate them all and download them all. Question 25 comes in from Grace Stewart. Right, what software are you using for your presentations? I use XSplit as screen capture, which is it's actually a gaming broadcast software package, but I use the local recording function for screen capture. Then I used to use Sony Vegas for a lot of the videos that I've done in the past, but then I just lost my rag with Sony Vegas. It's a fucking horrendous program. And then now I use Adobe Premiere. So Premiere Pro and XSplit. Right, a couple more questions. Question 26 comes in from Bearcat Me. Neil, is there any way, any of the simplification methods to retain mass properties? Is there any way with any of the simplification methods are to retain mass properties of the assembly in the simplified IPT file? So when you shrink wrap something, is there any way for that shrink wrapped file to keep the same mass and center of gravity as the original assembly? Yes, there is. You have to do it. If you use use simplified part, which is on the ribbon bar at the top, that it doesn't work. You have to go to the assemble panel, and then on the expanded ribbon bar, click shrink wrap, and then it only works with the user a surface model, so the composite feature. It's the little orange icon in the shrink wrap dialog box. So at the top you've got 4 icons: solid body, keeping seams between faces. Is the one on the far right, the orange icon. Click that, and then the shrink wrapped part will have the same mass and mass properties as the original assembly. Question 27 comes in from the last one, SMC Remix 87. Right, would a GTX 1070 work in the Dell Precision? This is from the gaming video that I did comparing the Dell workstation to that PC there. Would a 1070 work in the Dell Precision workstation? Yes, it would. Absolutely no reason why it wouldn't. It's a PCI Express slot. It should be absolutely fine as long as you get the drivers downloaded and you remove the Dell Quadro drivers and put the GeForce drivers on. It should be absolutely fine. I've got a Dell workstation. I've got a 1070. I could put them in and test it, but I can't imagine there's many people out there who are buying Dell workstations and then putting in a 1070. I can't imagine there's many people doing that. That's why I haven't really done any videos on that. But that's it. That's my question and answers done. 27 questions got through. Yeah, I'll do this again when I've got enough additional questions coming in. But please don't be offended if I haven't answered any questions directly on YouTube. I'm just trying not to set a precedent whereby it looks like I am available to answer questions and then people get offended when I don't answer theirs. I don't want to have to selectively pick easy ones and stuff like that. So I'll do another question and answer video in the future if enough come through. So until then, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.